The warp. The most fundamental detail missed about the warp is that it isn't just space hell. It is a psychic mirror of every emotion ever felt by a sentient being. Originally, the warp was a calm, neutral dimension known as the Sea of Souls. However, millions of years of galactic-scale war, hatred, and suffering, beginning with the war in heaven, polluted this dimension. Because the warp reacts to thought, the collective trauma of trillions of beings condensed into the four chaos gods. They aren't evil in a human sense. They are elemental forces of extreme emotion. Corny is the embodiment of rage. Nurgle is the personification of the fear of death. Tzeentch is the drive for change. And Slaanesh is the pursuit of excess. The warp is a feedback loop. The galaxy's suffering feeds the gods, and the gods, in turn, influence the galaxy to create more suffering to sustain their existence. Humanity's greatest enemy isn't an alien race. It is the literal accumulation of our own darkest impulses, reflected back at us from a dimension of pure thought. The God Emperor's living death. The God Emperor of mankind is often called the protector of humanity, but the terrifying reality is that he is a cosmic battery trapped in eternal agony. The Emperor has sat on the Golden Throne for 10,000 years, but he isn't alive in any traditional sense. He is a powerful psychic husk, kept in a state of perpetual near death by the throne's machinery. His primary function is to act as a lighthouse, projecting the Astronomicon, a psychic beam that allows Imperial ships to navigate the warp. Without it, the Imperium would collapse instantly into isolated planets. The missed detail is the cost. To keep his mind active, the Imperium must sacrifice 1,000 psychic humans every single day. Their souls are literally burned as fuel to maintain the Emperor's light. He is a god who hates being a god, kept alive by a death cult empire that violates every ideal he originally stood for. The Emperor is a prisoner of his own throne, suffering 1,000 deaths a day to save a species that has turned his name into the very thing he fought to destroy, a religion. The war in heaven, the original sin. Every conflict in 40k can be traced back to the war in heaven, a conflict so massive it broke the laws of physics and the afterlife itself. 60 million years ago, a short-lived, cancer-ridden race called the Necrons grew jealous of the immortal Old Ones. In their desperation, they made a pact with the C'tan, star-eating gods of pure energy. The C'tan offered them immortality, but it was a trap. They transferred the Necrons' consciousness into cold, mechanical bodies of living metal, effectively devouring their souls in the process. These became the Necrons. The resulting war between the Necrons and the Old Ones was so violent that it shattered the warp, turning it from a peaceful realm into the nightmare it is today. The missed detail is that the Eldar, the Orks, and even the human psychic potential were all biological weapons created by the Old Ones to fight this war. We aren't the main characters of the galaxy. We are just the leftover biological shrapnel from a war that ended eons before our species even learned to walk upright. The Orks and the Wa field. The Orks are the most successful race in the galaxy because they possess a passive psychic ability that allows them to rewrite the laws of reality. Ork technology is, objectively speaking, absolute garbage. Their guns are often just pipes filled with scrap, and their ships are giant rocks with engines bolted on. Under any other species' hands, these things would explode or fail to fire. However, the Orks generate a psychic field known as the Wa. If enough Orks believe a gun works, it works. If they believe red ones go faster, red vehicles actually move at higher speeds. This field isn't a conscious choice. It is a biological byproduct of their design as a warrior race created by the Old Ones. They are the ultimate bioweapon, a species that is literally too stupid to realize that what they are doing is impossible, which is exactly why they are so dangerous. The Orks are the only happy race in the 41st millennium. While everyone else struggles with logic and despair, the Orks are simply believing their way into total galactic dominance. The Tyranids? The Tyranids are not an alien empire. They are a single colossal organism that has already consumed entire galaxies before reaching our own. Every Tyranid, from the smallest ripper to the largest hive ship, is a mindless limb of the hive mind. When a Tyranid fleet approaches a planet, they project the shadow in the warp, a psychic static that cuts off all communication and drives local psychics insane. Their goal isn't conquest or glory, it is biomass. They consume every organic molecule on a planet, down to the atmosphere and the oceans, leaving only a dead, airless rock behind. The missed detail is the scale of the invasion. Lore experts believe that the Tyranid fleets we see now are merely the scout organisms. The main hive fleet is likely so large it surrounds our entire galaxy, slowly closing its jaws on everything that lives. In the end, it doesn't matter who wins the war between the Imperium and Chaos. The Tyranids are simply waiting for the survivors to grow enough meat for the final harvest. The fall of the Eldar. The Eldar didn't just lose an empire. They accidentally birthed a god of chaos that literally tore the galaxy in half and consumed their souls. Millions of years ago, the Eldar were the undisputed masters of the galaxy. Having automated all labor, they fell into a spiral of ultimate hedonism and depravity. Because the Eldar are highly psychic, their collective obsession with extreme sensation began to coalesce in the warp. For centuries, this psychic pressure built up until it reached a breaking point, resulting in the birth of Slaanesh, the Prince of Excess. The psychic scream of Slaanesh's birth was so violent, it instantly wiped out the core of the Eldar Empire, creating the Eye of Terror. Every Eldar soul was claimed by Slaanesh at that moment. The missed detail is that modern Eldar aren't just refugees, they are a species living on borrowed time, using spirit stones to trap their souls upon death to avoid being eternally tortured by the god they created. The Eldar are a cautionary tale of what happens when a species conquers every physical limit. They become the architects of their own eternal damnation. Commorragh. While some Eldar fled to Craftworlds, the Drukhari or Dark Eldar hid in a dimension-folding city called Commorragh, where they survive by being monsters. Commorragh is located within the Webway, a labyrinthine dimension between the warp and real space. Because they don't use spirit stones, the Dark Eldar's souls are constantly being leaked or drained by Slaanesh. To prevent their souls from fully fading, they discovered a horrific loophole. They can refill their life force by absorbing the psychic energy of others' suffering. This makes the Drukhari a race of psychic vampires. They launch raids across the galaxy not for resources or territory, but for captives to bring back to their torture pits. The missed detail is that Commorragh is so massive it contains stolen suns and billions of inhabitants, all living in a society where the only currency is the ability to inflict pain more creatively than your neighbor. The Dark Eldar are not just cruel for the sake of it. They have turned sadism into a biological necessity, proving that in 40k, survival often costs your humanity. The Tau Empire and the Greater Good. The Tau are often seen as the good guys of 40k, but their philosophy of the greater good hides a system of total, chemically enforced subjugation. The Tau are unique because they have almost no psychic presence, making them invisible to the warp. Their society is divided into a rigid caste system, all serving the ethereals. While they claim to offer peace and progress, the missed detail is that their unity is likely artificial. Evidence suggests the ethereals use high-level pheromones or specialized organ implants to mind control the other castes into total obedience. Any race that joins the Tau Empire is given a choice: assimilate and serve the greater good, or be sterilized and removed. They are a polite dystopia, using advanced plasma tech and diplomacy to hide the fact that they are just as expansionist and intolerant as the Imperium, only with better public relations and cleaner aesthetics. The Tau represent the horror of the soft totalitarians. They don't want to burn you at the stake. They want to reprogram your mind until you thank them for the privilege. The Chaos Space Marines. The Chaos Space Marines aren't just evil soldiers. They are 10,000-year-old veterans of a galactic civil war who have traded their souls for the power of the dark gods. The tragedy of the Chaos Space Marines lies in the Horus Heresy, a massive betrayal where half of the Emperor's legions turned against him. After their defeat, they fled into the Eye of Terror where time flows differently. A Marine might have been fighting the Long War for 10 millennia, but to him, only a few centuries have passed. The missed detail is that their equipment and biology have become warp-smithing nightmares. Their armor fuses to their skin, and their gene seed, the organ that makes them super soldiers, mutates into something demonic. They are no longer humans in suits. They are living conduits for the warp. They don't fight for a country or a planet. They fight to tear down the false emperor out of a bitter, immortal spite that has been festering in the warp mist for eons. The traitor legions are a mirror of the Imperium's own zealotry, proving that the Emperor's greatest weapons were easily turned into his most terrifying nightmare. The Necron Awakening. After 60 million years of slumber, the Necrons are finally waking up, and they view every other race as nothing more than vermin infesting their property. The Necrons are a race of immortal, self-repairing machines made of living metal, necrodermis. When they went into their great sleep, they expected to wake up to a galaxy they could easily reclaim. Instead, they found a universe swarming with life and infested by the warp. The missed detail is that the Necrons are the only race with the technology to actually kill the warp. They use Blackstone pylons to create null zones where psychic energy cannot exist. Their leader, Sarek the Silent King, has returned from the intergalactic void not to save humanity, but to use us as meat shields against the Tyranids. They possess weapons that can delete atoms and maps that can trigger supernovas with a touch. They aren't fighting for survival, they are performing a planetary cleanup operation. In the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, the Necrons are the ultimate inevitability. While the younger races burn themselves out in war, the machines are simply waiting for the fire to die.
Subscribe for more interesting stuff. Tell us your experience in the comments.